What's up, nation? Today let's talk Nintendo Switch news. Alright everyone, so we got some surprise Nintendo Switch news to cover today. So an overseas newspaper actually leaked the existence of a new model of the Switch going into production. They are claiming that at the end of this year that it's going to start production and that it's going to be hitting retailers as soon as Q1 of 2021. So obviously when news like that, Nintendo fans have started to speculate, what are we going to see with this revision? Is this just going to be another like battery life update like they kind of did with the last round, where we actually got a different version of the Switch, but all it was a more efficient, power efficient graphics chip that allowed the battery life to last a little bit longer on the Switch, and there was really no other major notable differences. So is it something like that, or are we seeing Nintendo start to kind of acknowledge the fact that obviously Sony and Microsoft are launching their next generation consoles, and they might want to have some kind of platform that can still run third-party games efficiently when you're talking about that new next-gen hardware. There has been a Switch Pro rumor floating around for quite some time, since the end of 2019, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know what we're going to see with this remodel, but I do have some opinions, and that's what we're going to talk through today. And very quickly, before we hop into the news, if you haven't had the opportunity to do so yet, please join Sunbro Nation today by subscribing below. Go ahead and hit the like button if you do enjoy this video, and then be sure to turn on your bell notification icon so you're updated as all the new news drops. I'll continue to keep you guys updated and informed, and with that, let's dive into the Switch. So to dive into the article details posted by VGC today, a Taipei-based newspaper, Economic Daily News, claimed on Tuesday that a new Nintendo Switch would enter production later this year, with a launch planned for Q1 2021. According to the publication, the new Switch model will feature upgraded interactivity and improved display quality. The report cites various hardware manufacturers responsible for the Switch flash storage, Joy-Con controllers, and more. Over the past year, several media reports have claimed that Nintendo has been planning a third Switch model in addition to the flagship console and the Switch Lite. Citing sources from the related supply chain, Taiwanese website DigiTimes reported in January that the new Switch hardware would enter mass production in the first quarter of this year and launch soon after. The Wall Street Journal also claimed in 2019 that Nintendo was planning on a more powerful Nintendo Switch hardware revision with enhanced features targeted at avid gamers. And in April, a Nintendo Switch firmware update reportedly referenced a new unannounced hardware model. According to an engineer, the console's version 10.0 firmware refers to a new NX ABCD hardware model. The software already references codenames for the launch model Switch and Switch Lite, and the 2019 update featuring improved battery life. Any existing hardware plans will likely have significantly been disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Nintendo resumed shipping Switch consoles in Japan in April after a brief hiatus, following a surge in demand for the hardware has continued through the summer. Analysts suggested that Nintendo Switch may have longer than expected life cycle, during which it surpasses Wii's sales totals of 102 million units. Switch launched in March 2017 and has sold some 61 million units as of June 30th. Earlier this year, Japan-based Kantan Games analyst Dr. Serkan Toto predicted in a GI.biz article that an upgraded Switch Pro would launch in the near future. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind, he said, adding that his guess was the console would be around $399. More specifically, I predict 4K support, bigger cartridge sizes, and of course, beefed up components, he said. In January, Nintendo claimed it had no plans to launch a new Nintendo Switch model during 2020. Now, as far as my opinions on all of this, I don't know exactly what to expect with this one. I think that it honestly makes sense either way, whether or not you look at it that Nintendo, as I mentioned in the intro of the video, they may want to have a Switch Pro hardware lined up and ready to go. It is something that's been rumored in the past, and we know that we're walking into a new console generation with Sony and Microsoft. Now, obviously, Nintendo hasn't been able to support every third-party title that has been released in the past. I mean, we've seen certain ports, but now we're seeing like even the baseline Nintendo Switch run games like Crysis 3 with that remaster coming down, which seems crazy. If you would have told me 5 years ago that a handheld console could run Crysis 3, I would have said you're crazy. But that's where we're at now. right? But then at the same time, games are continuing to progress with ray tracing and 4K native resolution and, you know, lock 60 frame per second and things like that. Nintendo is going to have to at some point obviously provide the Switch with a more powerful, beefy model that's going to be able to keep up with consoles like the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. Now, by no means do I expect this to be anywhere near as powerful as that when we do see that released, but I would like to kind of talk through what I think that they could do to improve upon the Nintendo Switch on the existing model. The first thing is definitely the screen of the Switch itself. If you look at the bezels around the screen of the Nintendo Switch, it actually has a lot of room that they could actually expand that to at least a 7-inch screen, if maybe not a 7.5-inch, so as opposed to the 6.2 that's on there right now. So if they could make that happen, I think that'd be a very welcome revision. What I hope that they would not do is make it something where, you know, we're splitting the platform where you can only play games on the Switch Pro, but you can't play them on the original Switch. Now, maybe they do that for certain games, like certain third-party titles that need to be run on the Switch in those higher resolutions, and maybe it needs that extra graphics processing power. That's fine, and that makes sense, but I hope that Nintendo wouldn't split the product lineup where you have your Switch regular games and your Switch Pro games. What I think is likely to happen is something that maybe similar to what we saw the 3DS go through, where it's, you know, they had a new 3DS that came out, but it was really the same 3DS with better graphics chips and updated display, and everything looked brighter and played better, and you had games that could take advantage of those settings, but you didn't have to just play it on the new 3DS. I don't think there were any new 3DS exclusive games that came out, so you were still able to play the entire library across both platforms, but if you wanted to put out the extra money for that new 3DS, you were getting upgraded visuals and better responsiveness from the game. So I hope that we're seeing something like that. I think that that does make sense, and I think that with games like even like Breath of the Wild 2 around the corner, that maybe they can push that to take advantage of this new chipset that's going to be released in the new model, and then we're getting better frame rates and we're getting higher resolution when docked and higher resolution on the screen itself in handheld mode. You know, maybe it's just kind of those quality of life improvements, but not a true Switch Pro. I mean, that being said, we are starting to move into more of a console release cycle where they do revise consoles mid-generation. I mean, we saw it, you know, with Microsoft doing numerous versions of the Xbox, and then Sony doing the PS4 and the PS4 Pro. It's becoming more of a industry standard to do a mid-cycle refresh. Now, up to this point, Nintendo hasn't really had a reason to put, you know, much more into the Switch than what they've had so far. They've had great success with the sales numbers. They've had great success with, you know, everything that they've done with the original launch. But that is 2017 hardware at this point, and really it was probably being developed in 2015. So I wouldn't be surprised if they, you know, put a more powerful graphics chip in there and hopefully do cut out some of the bezels on the screen and give us a more revised console. I think that would be excellent if that's what this is. Of course, then we do have to have the conversation though about, is this that, or is this something that we're really just looking at another minor refresh? Now, they specifically said that we can expect an enhanced display, or more, it actually said will feature upgraded interactivity, whatever that means. Now, whether that means more touch responsive or just a better display quality overall, that remains to be seen. But it is possible that this is a very minor update where they've worked out some of the bugs. Maybe like Joy-Con drift is a thing of the past with this new model, and it's just going to be another incremental upgrade where we see a new model number released and maybe a different style box art, but at the end of the day, it's the same old Switch. So I would love to know your guys' opinion on what you're expecting. I'm personally expecting this to be somewhere in the middle. I don't think we're getting a full Switch Pro, but we might be getting like the new Nintendo Switch, rather, you know, something like that was similar to how they did with the 3DS, where it is a bump in graphical quality, it is a bump in battery life and different things like that, and maybe, fingers crossed, even screen size could come down in this update. But I don't know that we're actually getting the title of Switch Pro. Obviously, all this is speculation at this point, so that's why I ask you guys your questions and your thoughts. I would love to get your opinions on what you think this could be. And then when you think that, you know, the timeline, you think that Q1 2021 is really going to be as soon as we can expect this, you know, you think it's something that's maybe kicked down the line further. I would be surprised with the Switch shortages just barely coming to an end if they can already ramp up an entire another console and have it ready to go by Q1 of 2021, unless if it's been in the works for longer and we're just now, you know, starting to see it. And you know, there is the possibility that part of the shortage was not just covered, you know, not just caused by COVID, but could have actually been caused by them putting some Switch to focus on the resources for the new console. So that's always a possibility as well. But from where it stands right now, I don't know what to expect in terms of release date. I do think that Q1 seems a little bit aggressive, unless if they've been working on this all throughout the year. So maybe we're talking more the middle of 2021. But with that said, I hope we get brighter display, bigger display, better graphics overall, and just a slight bump in performance. And maybe it gives the Switch just enough power to run some of the new generation third-party games that we're going to be seeing from Sony and Microsoft and their studios. Maybe we get something that's just upgraded enough to run those, PS5, Xbox Series X level titles, but it's not going to be obviously in full resolution and everything, but just to where it can run the scaled down version. Maybe you drop ray tracing and stuff like that, but it can still function in third-party games. I think if Nintendo could put together a package like that, walking into 2021 when there is going to be this straight-up competition from Sony and Microsoft with their new consoles, I think that they're going to be in a really good spot, and they're going to be poised well for third-party developers not to have to forego the Switch option altogether, because they can port a lot of those titles over more easily with a more graphics-capable chip. So I'm hoping that that's what we see from this console revision, but I would love to get your guys' thoughts on it as well. So let's have that conversation down in the comments below. Thanks so much for sticking around to the end of the video, everybody. I do truly appreciate it. I did want to invite everybody one more time, if you haven't done it already, to join Sunbro Nation today by subscribing below. Hit the like button if you did enjoy the content in this video, and then turn on your bell notification icon so you're updated with the latest Nintendo news as it comes out. And then again, if you would, just leave me a comment below with your guys' thoughts. Do you think that this is something that we can for sure expect in Q1 of 2021? Do you think it's maybe just bad info and it's not something that's actually going to come out from Nintendo? I would love to get it back and forth dialogue started with you all. I will reply to all the comments left on my videos. But again, that's going to be it for me, guys. I appreciate you sticking around. Sunbro Nation, out.